A humble shepherd, the rise of Pope Francis. Pope Francis is a unique figure in the history of the Catholic Church. He is the first pope from Latin America, a region where the Catholic faith is deeply rooted but often overlooked. His election in 2013 signaled a new era for the Church, marked by humility, compassion, and a deep commitment to the poor and marginalized. From the moment he stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis captivated the world with his simple message of love and mercy. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1936, his life was shaped by social and economic inequality. His upbringing instilled in him a profound sense of social justice and a deep identification with the struggles of ordinary people. This upbringing would later define his papacy, leading him to champion the cause of the poor and to challenge the excesses of capitalism. Francis's path to the papacy was not traditional. He spent years as a Jesuit priest in Argentina, working tirelessly in the slums of Buenos Aires. His experiences there, ministering to the poor and marginalized, left an enduring mark on his worldview. Francis's election as pope was a surprise to many, both within and outside the church. Yet, from the moment he chose the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, it was clear that this new pope intended to chart a different course for the church. The weight of the papacy, from Buenos Aires to Rome. The papacy is an ancient and weighty office, steeped in tradition and protocol. Yet Pope Francis, from the moment of his election, seemed determined to reshape the role in his own image. He eschewed the opulent papal apartments, choosing to live in a modest guest house within the Vatican. He traded in the traditional red papal shoes for simple black ones, and he surprised the world by washing the feet of prisoners, including women and Muslims, during Holy Thursday ceremonies. These symbolic gestures were more than just a break with tradition. They reflected Francis's deep commitment to humility and service. He saw himself not as a ruler, but as a shepherd, called to serve the needs of his flock, especially the most vulnerable. This emphasis on humility and service resonated deeply with Catholics and non-Catholics alike, drawing millions to his message of compassion and hope. Francis's papacy was also marked by a new openness to dialogue and engagement with the modern world. A church of open arms. Francis's vision of inclusion. Pope Francis's vision for the Catholic Church was one of radical inclusion and boundless mercy. He envisioned a church that was a field hospital for the wounded, a place of healing and compassion for all, regardless of their past mistakes or present circumstances. One of the most striking examples of Francis's commitment to inclusion was his outreach to the LGBTQ+ community. While reaffirming the Church's traditional teachings on marriage and sexuality, he struck a more compassionate tone, emphasizing the need to treat all people with dignity and respect. Francis also made significant strides in promoting the role of women within the Church, appointing women to key leadership positions within the Vatican bureaucracy. However, he stopped short of supporting the ordination of women to the priesthood, a move that disappointed many who hoped for more radical change. Francis's vision of inclusion extended beyond the internal affairs of the Church to encompass a global embrace of the marginalized. Navigating the storm, controversies and challenges. Pope Francis's papacy, while marked by moments of grace and inspiration, was not without its share of controversies and challenges. His efforts to reform the Vatican bureaucracy and to address the Church's ongoing sexual abuse crisis were met with resistance from some quarters. The sexual abuse crisis, in particular, cast a long shadow over Francis's papacy. He took steps to address the issue, establishing a Vatican Commission on Child Protection and meeting with victims of abuse. However, he was also criticized for his handling of certain cases and for his perceived slowness in implementing meaningful reforms. Francis's outspokenness on issues such as climate change, economic inequality, and the plight of refugees also drew criticism from some, both inside and outside the Church. However, Francis remained undeterred, arguing that the gospel had a clear message about caring for the poor, protecting the environment, and welcoming the stranger. A global voice for the marginalized, Francis' social justice advocacy. Pope Francis emerged as a powerful global voice for the marginalized and dispossessed. His papacy was marked by a deep commitment to social justice, rooted in his belief that the gospel had profound implications for the way societies treated the poor, the vulnerable, and the outcast. He challenged world leaders to address the root causes of poverty, inequality, and environmental degradation, and he called for a more just and equitable world for all. Francis's pronouncements on economic justice were particularly pointed, criticizing the excesses of capitalism and calling for a more humane and compassionate economic order. Climate change was another area where Francis emerged as a leading moral voice, seeing the environmental crisis as a deeply moral issue. His encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si', was hailed as a landmark document calling for urgent action to address climate change and its devastating consequences. Francis's advocacy for refugees and migrants was perhaps the most visible example of his commitment to social justice. The final days. A Pope's farewell. In the twilight of his papacy, Pope Francis's health began to decline. Years of tireless service to the Church and to the world had taken their toll. He suffered from a number of ailments, including chronic leg pain and respiratory issues, which increasingly limited his mobility and stamina. Yet even as his physical health weakened, his spirit remained undimmed, his commitment to his mission unwavering. Francis continued to carry out his duties as Pope with remarkable energy and dedication, even as his health deteriorated. He maintained a demanding schedule of public appearances, meetings, and trips, refusing to let his physical limitations deter him from his pastoral responsibilities. As his health worsened, Francis's public appearances became less frequent, but his message still potent, calling for peace, justice, and mercy. In his final public address, delivered just days before his death, Francis spoke of the importance of hope even in the face of suffering and uncertainty. A legacy forged in mercy and change. Pope Francis's enduring impact. Pope Francis's death marked the end of an era for the Catholic Church. His papacy, though relatively brief, left an indelible mark on the Church and on the world. He will be remembered as a pope of the poor and marginalized, a champion of social justice, a tireless advocate for peace, and a powerful voice for the voiceless. His legacy is complex and multifaceted, but it is a legacy forged in mercy, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to building a more just and humane world. Francis's impact on the Catholic Church is still unfolding, sparking debate and division within the Church. However, there is no doubt that he has shifted the conversation, challenging the Church to confront its past failings and to embrace a more inclusive and compassionate future. His moral authority, global stature, and willingness to speak truth to power have made him a force to be reckoned with on the world stage. Pope Francis will be remembered as a humble shepherd who led by example and a global leader who inspired millions with his message of mercy, compassion, and hope.